All right, every year India drops its union budget. It's a massive financial blueprint that, let's be honest, affects over a billion people. So let's dive right into this year's huge economic game plan and see what it really means for the country's future. So, what's the big idea here? Well, at its heart, the 2026 budget is all about one powerful concept: balancing two huge priorities. On one hand, you've got this major push for rock solid economic stability. And on the other, some really ambitious plans for growth. It's like they're trying to build a super strong foundation for today while also launching a rocket for tomorrow. And just to give you a sense of the sheer scale we are dealing with, get a load of this number. The total budget is a mind-boggling 53.5 lakh crore rupees. Yup, that's a 53.5 times trillion rupee plan for the nation's economy. We are talking about a serious amount of money here. Okay, so a 53.5 trillion rupee plan? The big question is, how exactly is the government going to spend all that? Well, the whole strategy really boils down to those two key ideas we mentioned. First, building that stable economic foundation, and second, firing up a massive engine for growth. So let's kick things off with that foundation. This first piece of the puzzle is all about being steady and predictable, fiscal discipline. The message the government is sending out to everyone, businesses, investors, you and me, is basically, don't worry, we've got a steady hand on the wheel here. And when it comes to stability, the number one priority seems to be no surprises. Think about it. If you're a person or a business trying to plan for the year ahead, the last thing you want are sudden changes. So the big goal this time around was to keep the tax environment super stable and predictable without any major shakeups. And a huge part of that stability, you guessed it, it comes down to taxes. If you look at the personal income tax slabs under the new regime, you'll see, well, nothing's changed. They're exactly the same. For anyone earning up to 4 lakh, the tax rate is 0, and the brackets just stay consistent all the way up. It's a really clear signal of business as usual, which, again, just helps everyone plan without worrying about any curveballs. Now, besides taxes, another massive part of stability is how the government manages its own money. This is where we get into something called the fiscal deficit. It sounds complicated, but it's not. Just think about your own household budget. The fiscal deficit is basically the gap between what the government earns and what it spends in a year. And just like with your own finances, a smaller gap is always a good thing. And you can really see they're serious about this. Just look at the trend line here. The government is clearly tightening its belt, aiming for a fiscal deficit of just 4.3% of GDP. That steady downward slope? That's a huge signal of commitment to getting the country's finances in good shape. And why does that matter so much? Well, a lower deficit can lead to lower borrowing costs for the whole country, and that really boosts economic confidence all around. All right, so we've got the foundation of stability locked in. Now let's pivot to the really exciting part, the second half of the strategy, powering up that growth engine. This is all about the big investments designed to really kick the economy into high gear. And here it is. This is the rocket fuel for that growth engine. We're talking about a massive 12.2 lakh crore rupees being pumped into something called capital expenditure, or CAPEX for short. Now, this isn't just everyday spending. This is the money that builds the future, things like roads, bridges, and factories. And let me be clear, this isn't just a flash in the pan. The trend here is absolutely incredible. We're seeing a sustained push to build up the country. I mean, this kind of investment has shot up by 460% over the last decade. That's huge. And what's really important to understand is that this kind of spending creates this massive ripple effect that boosts the entire economy. So why is everyone so focused on this CAPEX number? Well, because it's so much more than just a figure on a spreadsheet. Think about it. This spending drives demand across the economy. It creates a ton of jobs. It actually helps protect us from global economic ups and downs. And maybe most importantly, it builds the actual physical stuff, the infrastructure that the country is going to rely on for generations. And a massive piece of that capital pie is being sliced off for infrastructure. The grand vision here is to connect India's major economic hubs like never before. We're talking about creating powerful new economic zones, and the backbone of this whole plan is a brand new, state-of-the-art, high-speed rail network. And this isn't just a dream on paper. It's a concrete plan that's starting to take shape. The budget lays out several major high-speed rail corridors that are going to link these key economic centers. You see the list here. We're talking about routes like Mumbai to Pune, Hyderabad to Bengaluru, and Delhi to Varanasi. And again, this is about way more than just getting from point A to point B faster. This is about literally redrawing the economic map of the country.
But it's not all about rail lines and roads. The government is also making some really smart strategic bets on key manufacturing sectors. You can see they're putting serious money, we're talking tens of thousands of crores, into supercritical industries like semiconductors, biopharma, and electronics. This is a very deliberate push to build up our own high-tech manufacturing power.
Okay, so you've got this two-pronged approach, stability on one side and a huge push for growth on the other. The million-dollar question, or I guess the trillion-rupee question is, who are the real winners here? Let's break down who stands to benefit the most. So, what's the general vibe out there? Well, if you look at the overall reaction, it's definitely leaning positive. A solid 61% of stakeholders see the budget's impact as either positive or highly positive. On the flip side, a really small slice of the pie sees it as negative. So, broadly speaking, it's been pretty well received. But let's get a bit more specific. If we look at the scorecard, you've got some clear winners. The infrastructure sector, big win. Manufacturing, same story. The insurance sector also got a nice boost. Then you have the wait-and-see column, folks like individual taxpayers, since nothing changed for them, or stock market investors. For them, the impact is kind of neutral, maybe a little mixed. It's really a let's see how this plays out situation for them. And really, if you want to know how the government itself sees this budget, this quote from the finance minister sums it up perfectly. She calls it a consolidation budget. What does that mean? Basically, it's not about making huge radical changes. It's about strengthening the path they're already on, sticking to reforms, and proving to the world that India is fiscally responsible. So let's wrap this all up. When you boil it all down, the 2026 budget is really one thing. It's a massive, multi-trillion rupee bet on growth driven by infrastructure, all propped up by a foundation of stability. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Is this the right bet for India's future? Only time will really tell if it pays off. But one thing is for sure, the vision is incredibly clear. It's a vision of a future connected by these new corridors of high-speed growth, one that could totally reshape the country's economic landscape. Thanks so much for joining me for this breakdown.